It's time to get clear, get heard, and get paid. And join us on our Soul Business Retreat. Attract your dream clients and income over 3 nights as we shape your passion into a business that makes a profit. Follow our 13 steps to reach 5K in 30 days in the beautiful Byron Bay. Whether you're starting, growing, or expanding your business, our all-inclusive 3-night retreat is the place for you. Check out the details in the show notes, and we hope to see you soon.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and today I have with us Cheryl Ilov. So she is an author, speaker, physical therapist, martial artist, and former chronic pain patient. With over 20 years experience as a physical therapist in private practice, she has helped thousands of clients recover from pain and injuries by integrating the science of physical therapy with the art of movement. Cheryl firmly believes that our body has an incredible capacity to heal itself and that everyone can enjoy vibrant health and vitality at every stage of life. She is also a second degree black belt in an ancient Japanese martial art called Ninpo Tai Jutsu, and from her own experience of beginning training at the tender young age of 47 and becoming her teacher's first female black belt 10 years later, she discovered that there is an incredible amount of strength and power in each and every one of us, just waiting to be unleashed. So welcome to the show, Cheryl, and I'm sorry if I massacred any of the wording and pronunciations of that of your martial art.
You did not.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Beautiful.
And thank you, Catherine, so much for having me on the show. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here.
So anyone who's listening, it was very cool when I connected with Cheryl over Zoom. She has all these amazing swords right behind you, and then she has all her books, which is very, very cool. So I feel let's start there because I'm being pulled to the swords. So what was it like joining and beginning martial arts at the beautiful age of 47?
It was absolutely terrifying. That's all I can have to say about it. I met my teacher, my sensei, when I was 44. And he was actually my acupuncturist before he became my teacher. And he was recommended to me by one of my clients who said, I think you'd really like this guy. You know, I was looking for a new acupuncturist. So she recommended him. And I thought, she's pretty picky. She wouldn't send me to anybody who was crazy. So I went for my first session with him. And he seemed like a nice enough fella. And the minute he started putting needles in my legs, he got a very faraway look on his face. And he said to me, you know, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. And I just kind of was like, okay, crazy person, where's my purse? And my plan was just to grab my purse and run, but he literally had a captive audience because I was pinned to the table, and unless I wanted to try and get up and run out the door with needles sticking out all over me, you know, he really had me where he wanted me. And so I just thanked him, you know, for thinking of me, and no martial arts. I really appreciate the invitation, but no, that's never going to happen. So you know, I thought maybe I don't want to go to this guy because he's, you know, a little crazy. So I did go back because I really liked him. And every single time I would go in for a session, he would talk about his martial art. He would try and convince me to take classes with him. He had a dojo right next door to his clinic, so it's kind of like a duplex. And he'd go on and on about his stupid martial art, and I would just sit there and going, oh my God, you're boring me to tears. Just, you know, leave the room, let the needles do their work, and stop talking. And, you know, he never, ever stopped. It took him 3 years. There's a very long backstory to it. But finally, he wore me down, and I said, okay, Mark, I tell you what, I will take a few classes just to prove to you how much I'm going to hate it, and then I'm going to quit. And 10 years later, I became his first female black belt. In 20 years of teaching, he had never had a woman achieve such a high rank.
Yeah.
Since that time, only one other woman has done it, and she was 30 years younger than me, and she has since left the dojo, so she's no longer training, and I still am at the tender young age of 68.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love how empowering that would have felt too. Like, but I like that he took so long to wear you down as well.
And people call me stubborn. I used to think I was the most stubborn person in the entire world until I met him. And let me tell you something, we're pretty evenly matched.
Well, it's often, the universe puts in front of us what we need to work on, right? So
Yes. And no matter how many times you say no, finally the universe takes a 2x4 to your head and says, you're going to do it.
And then did you find doing, no, I was going to say karate. It wasn't karate. I just keep thinking black belt. By doing the martial art, that it then allowed you to integrate that more into how you were working as a physical therapist?
100%. Studying this martial art, even at the beginning, well, maybe not at the beginning because I was terrified for the first 2 years, but I still kept going to class anyway, because there was something that was so compelling that just really drew me to it. And it was just almost, I would have to use the word seductive. There was something about it that was so beautiful, and it really resonated with my experience both as a dancer and as a physical therapist. And I'm also something called a Feldenkrais practitioner, which is another one of those movement modalities that has a very strong healing capability. So it all came together, of course, with physical therapy and with dance and with the Feldenkrais method. People aren't trying to attack you.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a twist to it. But what it did for not only my awareness, which was actually pretty good to begin with, but it just fine-tuned it to a point where it was so empowering. And I had so much confidence. And it seemed to it didn't happen at first, trust me, but it just kind of infused itself into every part of my life, every single part, not my physical therapy practice, my ballet, technique, my relationship with people, and just your confidence that you have when you know that you're in public and you can handle yourself no matter what happens. Because you're always paying attention, you're always aware of your surroundings, and it's not in a way of being fearful, it's a way of being aware.
It's so funny you say that because I used to do boxing a lot, and it's funny because I actually,
fun.
yeah, and I have actually have a shoulder injury, so people are surprised when I say that. But for me, it was knowing how to hold my body in such a way that, like you said, that if you were in that situation, you weren't going to be helpless. You were the unsuspecting package that people did not want to try and open, so it's very, like you said, empowering, especially as a woman. Sometimes we end up in situations where we feel very uncomfortable, but to know that you have a skill set that no one could easily pick, right? If anyone saw Cheryl, I would not pick that she's a black belt in karate. And I'm not saying that because, you have this image, right? And I keep saying karate, and I don't mean to say karate, but, you have a black belt.
No offense. It's fine.
Okay. But, it's just, it's amazing. So well done, and I love that for you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's really the package is kind of like doesn't really fit with the description. So a lot of people are surprised, to say the least, when they know that, when they discover that I'm a black belt or that I do martial arts, and I've been doing it for 21 years. But that's part of the charm, is that you don't look the part. You don't walk around going, I could kick butt and take names, and it's just like, I'm a helpless, harmless little, well, I used to be a middle-aged woman, but I guess I'm past that point. But I look like a little bit of fluff that really couldn't, hurt a fly, let alone throw somebody across the room.
It's funny because my brother, he used to do jiu-jitsu and carpool, I think. Anyway, but he come home this one day and he had this massive black eye, and we're like, "What happened to you?" And he goes, "I was paired with the lady." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" And the best and strongest person in their class was this tiny little woman, and she was just like, you would not pick that from her, and she was actually the highest ranked in everything, and she just didn't hold back on anybody either. Like, she just went whoop whoop, and he ended up with the black eye, and it was kind of the joke for a little bit, but it was just, he said you wouldn't pick her because she's just so unsuspecting, and and like you said, it's just, you can't judge a book by its cover. It's such a true thing. Yeah.
Well, good for her. Kudos for her. And I can already see this happening in my mind's eye and my imagination. But, the lovely thing that I learned, one of the many wonderful things I learned, was that size doesn't matter.
You just have to know how to use your body and understand what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And then I see how that beautifully ties into being a physical therapist as well, because all our bodies are designed differently. And when people come to you with an injury or need strength training, then you can say, hey, use your other aspects, right, to help build on that.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's such an empowering sensation or feeling, to be able to do that for yourself. But a lot of the people that I worked with have had different, of course, injuries, but traumatic experiences in the past, which I have had myself. And it was a way that I could use the skills that I knew to, very gently introduce them to my clients without scaring the heck out of them, or terrifying them, and just giving them their power back, or giving it to, here's a little sample platter. Take what you want, or take what you think you can use or need. So it was a way of really taking them out of that trauma.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them have had traumatic experiences, like we all do. None of us get through life without them.
Well, it's part of being human. That's what we sign up for. And I feel to ask, because it's been itching in the back of my head, what is the Feldenkrais method? Tell me.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. It's Feldenkrais.
Yeah.
Is a somatic movement.
Perfect.
Okay, it's a somatic movement practice.
Yep.
It has an unfortunate name of Feldenkrais because that's the name of the man who founded it. His name was Moshe Feldenkrais. And it really works with the principle of neuroplasticity, which means that our mind, our brain, our bodies, our movements, we are inherently malleable and able to change our patterns during the entire course of our lifetime through what is called neuroplasticity. Because, our brain, our nervous system is incredibly plastic and malleable and changeable, which is what happens when someone gets traumatized and they're stuck in the trauma. That's an example of it. But you don't have to be that way. And what Feldenkrais does, it taps into this neuroplasticity in a very gentle but powerful way through movement. And it is one of the most phenomenal, I call it an art, it's a healing art, that I have ever studied. And I am a practitioner. It's a 4-year training program. Moshe, of course, was from Israel. Originally, he was from Hungary. And when he was, I believe, 13 years old, he traveled by foot from Hungary to the Adriatic coast to get a boat to go to Israel, because that's when, they were starting to, open it up and stuff. So that was going to be his homeland. So it's an incredible story and an incredible body of work that is so gentle but so powerful because it's tapping into our nervous system.
Yeah, which is such a powerful thing to be able to do. And I love that it's bringing in somatic movement, because a lot of people don't realize how movement does help our body release all the trauma that's pent up. And like you were saying, our brains are malleable. And it's funny because when I went to university many years ago, probably not as long ago as you, Cheryl, and I'm not saying that too, but it was still, it feels a long time ago. It was nearly 2 decades ago, and they were just starting to realize that the brain is neuroplastic, because it was such a thing. They're like, oh no, you're just set in your ways. But then all the evidence was contradicting that. So, it's really lovely now that all these practices are coming out, and the movement just taps into that, polyvagal nervous system and pulls you out of the trauma. So for anyone listening, the polyvagal nervous system. It's like the biggest nerve system through your body. But when you're in trauma, it's what turns you into fight and flight. And your body doesn't get to recover when it's in fight or flight because it's in survival mode, essentially. Yeah.
I am so glad you brought that up because that actually made me crazy. When I was in physical therapy school, and of course I was an older student, I was in my late 30s. I think I was 36, 37 when I started PT school. And in all of our neurology classes, we were taught, that this neuroplasticity, what I call this miracle of nature, just disappears at the age of, what did they say, 13.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm just a stupid student who worked in neurotrauma units as a respiratory therapist for almost 20 years, but this does not make sense because I would see patients and I worked with patients that they were saying, never going to recover, and they would.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're told over and over, you're not going to get any better, this is the best you're going to get, we'll teach you how to compensate. Or my personal favorite is, we'll take care of you. Oh, I don't want that. So it was one of those things. It's like, well, they're never going to get any better. And so I think we did a lot of people probably a disservice by not tapping into this neuroplasticity. So thank goodness that things did turn around where there was a lot of research and a lot of studies. And have you read any of Norman Deutsch's books?
No, but it took such a long time for the science to catch up. And it's funny, I was talking about this with someone yesterday saying, it's taken, I don't even know, science so long to prove that grounding actually helps your body, for example, right? And so, everyone got called hippies or woo for hugging trees and sitting on the ground barefoot, when actually it was doing a favor to the nervous system in such a big way that now it's finally been measured and tested, so it's not as woo anymore. And in fact, I think they call it something else, so it's like, it's
trying to figure out what it is called. I can't remember.
Earthing. Yeah
We're on the same wavelength here.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's and exactly, and sometimes even so my background is I'm a speech language pathologist. That's my background. So allied health,
okay.
Right? So being in that kind of thing where where they're going, they're telling us and teaching all these things. I'm like, but it's not sitting with me. It doesn't feel right. It's not working. It's, and trusting your intuition in that moment. Like you said, you're sitting there going, I just worked with all these patients and everything, and it was proving a different thing. So, it's really interesting when you get that feedback from yourself and to learn how to trust that too.
Well, you see so many wonderful things. I mean, you see terrible things too when you're working in, speech and language or physical therapy or respiratory therapy, which I did as well. But that you see so many miracles, and to tell somebody, hey, this is it, you're not going to get any better, I think is just criminal. It's just terrible to take away somebody's hope and to, destroy their dreams and give them absolutely, nothing to look forward to. I think is absolutely criminal.
It's funny when you were saying that. I had this memory when I was a student and I was working in a hospital, and there was a man in there and he had a stroke. And he spoke 4 languages. And when he had this stroke, he went back to his home language, which was French. But because he was still in that brain swelling stage and the swelling was still coming down, I actually had to go, as a young student, advocate and push for him to be assessed better, because everyone had written him off. Like you said, we'll just take care of him. And I remember my supervisor, because I was in this meeting with these very senior members of the allied health team, and I'm like, no, you can't discount him. And I'm like advocating for my client. And my supervisor was just like, I was really admirable what you did in there. She's like, but next time, just, I can do it too. I can do it for you. Because she was so like, because they're all there going like, looking at her like, put your student in line. She's like, no, I don't want to put her in line. So it was, and it was just trusting that instinct I had, that I was like, no, there's, give him some time, and let his brain recover. And it was still that shift out of that mindset too. and I guess that's where, people like yourself come in, Cheryl, where you're like, no, there's something more. I'm going to keep pushing for this, and I'm not going to, I'm going to follow my instincts, and I'm going to follow my experience as well and what I've seen to make it, work. And, and then that's when we go seeking for these other practices, right, too. So it's like there's something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to be able to speak for your patients, or to be able to speak for somebody who cannot speak for themselves, I think is a very important and powerful responsibility I think that we have. When I first started working in the medical field, of course I was pretty young. I was 19, 20 when I went to started my respiratory therapy school. And of course, we were taught to be subservient, dare I say, and you just doctors say, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, it was like, well, no, that's not really quite working for me. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of times, I would stand up for the patient or for the family, and, like coworkers would say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't question. And I'm like, well, who else is going to do it?
Exactly. And, I guess that's where you're claiming your power back, because so often in society we give our power away to the medical field and to the therapists and things we work with. Whereas actually, no, you still have autonomy over your body. You're seeking an opinion and you're seeking assistance. And if it doesn't sit with you, it's the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to say, I'm getting a second opinion, or I want to talk to somebody else, so, and, even I've worked with clients who've been at end of life and supporting the partners through that too. And, and the partners are like, no, I don't want that. I want a second opinion, and having to fight with the hospital to do that because they've just written off, the partner or whatever it might be. And it's so, and then that person, I'm thinking in my mind right now, then she's like, actually, I want to become a patient advocate. And I said, you'd be really good at it, because she knows how to work the system because she was in it so long, supporting her husband through terminal illness, and it's like, well, no, follow that and honor that, because I feel more people need to know their rights, especially when it comes to just because the doctor says doesn't mean you have to do if it doesn't sit with you.
And I think we're really fortunate because there are so many alternative healing modalities now available
Exactly.
to us. And to be able to say, okay, this therapist or this practitioner is going to come in and work with my husband, and this is, and to speak for someone who cannot speak for themselves is not only a powerful experience, but it's our responsibility.
Yeah. 100%. And, and anyone, I feel anyone that's pulled to working in any sort of field with sort of any health, either it's alternative health, Western health, Eastern health, doesn't matter, whatever, we all have this wanting to do the best we can for our clients. We all have this wanting to get them to a point, in life where, they are pain-free, or they are, empowered in themselves, that their body isn't holding them back anymore.
Or their mind.
Or their mind, correct. Or their soul. We can go all three levels there. So what, I keep looking at your books behind you now. So what inspired you then to write and to get your stories out there?
Oh, this is really funny. So I have 4 sisters. Okay, I'm number 3 out of 5, which that's really a trip growing up that way. And my youngest sister actually told me, it was after our parents passed away, and it was a few months later, and she looked at me. She says, "You need to write a book." And I said, "No, I don't." And she says, "Yeah, you do. You need to write a book, and you need to write a book about our family." And I said, "Oh, well, okay. If you think it's such a good idea, why don't you write the book?" And she says, no, I know you write really well, and I know you could do it, and blah, blah, blah. So she's going, I says, how do you know that? And she goes, well, I've read your blogs and stuff. And she goes, so yeah, you can do it. And I thought about it for a while, and I'm like, okay, yeah, easy for her to say. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to write a book about my family history, because it is kind of interesting. And then I started writing it, and I just couldn't do it. It was like too soon after my parents passed away. They died just 19 days apart, so, it's pretty traumatic. Yeah, and they died of the same disease. So it's like, why am I doing this? I should focus on something that could help promote me, my practice, and my career as a physical therapist, an alternative physical therapist. So that's when I came up with the idea for the Forever Fit and Flexible. So writing a book on fitness over 50, which I know a lot about because I'm way over 50. And, all of the things that I've learned along the way that I could put into a book to help other people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond to take charge of their own health and fitness and wellness without falling prey to some of the falsehoods, let's just say, that society and even the medical field and, the experts tell us, you're just going to just sit in a corner over there, maybe do some light weights, don't stress yourself. Yeah. So that's it. So that kind of busts the myths of aging.
Yeah, which is so, well, I feel your story about how you were pulled to martial arts and then became a black belt at, what age were you when you got your black belt? 57? Is that right?
I was 57.
50, yeah. I think that just busts all the myths in itself, right? So,
right.
And it's funny because back, generations ago, the elder members of society were regarded as that. They were elders with the wisdom, and we all had things to learn from them. And somewhere along the line, we flipped that, where it's like, oh no, you're too old. You just need to go in a nursing home and kind of, be ignored. And it's really interesting to have that flip, and I don't know where it happened or why it happened, but it's like we forget that it's actually the elders that carry the wisdom, and we need to tap into that and that matriarchal energy if you're a woman, and really tap into that power with that. So I love that then you created a book busting all those myths down. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then you wrote another book.
Yeah, I did. So my second book is The Reluctant Ninja, How a Middle-Aged Princess Became a Warrior Queen. So it is my journey into that strange new world of men and martial arts, going from being this delicate little ballet dancer, very girly girl, into the dojo, and most of the time everybody in the dojo was male, so there was not a strong female support group. And just the entire journey and what I went through, because the main reason why I did agree to take a few classes was because I had had a really significant trauma just about 4 months before I met Mark, my sensei. And I didn't tell him, I didn't say anything about it until a year and a half later when everything just came pouring out of me. I was triggered, and so I went down into the PTSD spiral. And that's when his campaign to get me on the mat went into high gear. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. And I really never expected to continue. I thought, I'm going to take a few classes, learn a few techniques, and then see you later. It's been real, and just go on my merry way. But of course, that wasn't what happened. And I told him, I says, I know I'm going to hate it. And I'm just going to take a few classes and quit because I will hate this. I just knew it. And it didn't happen immediately, but I fell in love. I fell in love with the art. I fell in love with the training. And I really fell in love with the sense of empowerment that it was starting to give me even fairly early on in my training. I cannot explain the feeling and the sensation that it gives you when you find that inner strength. And I know in my heart, Catherine, that inner strength is in each and every single one of us, especially as women.
Yeah.
We have such an incredible capacity to take care of ourselves, take care of others, to, don't you cross that line. And that's just kind of how the whole thing started. And there were so many times in the dojo, I never expected to get this far, and no one ever did either. They figured I'd be gone in a couple of months. But the sense of empowerment was just unbelievable. And there were times in the dojo I would just go, oh my God, I'm going to write a book someday. I'm going to write a book someday. I'm going to write a book about this. Never, ever expecting to become an author. So, so that's my whole journey with all of the bumps in the road, which there were a lot of, the intrigue, the successes, the blatant failures, the backstabbing. It's all in there.
Yeah. And I don't think any book would complete without our actual truths.
Right? funny part because after the book went live, that was March of 22 is when the book was published. And, I was kind of excited about it. I mean, it really is a good story. It's kind of like riding a roller coaster. But after it was published, I had 3 really bad weeks because it was like, oh my God, I cannot get this genie back in the bottle. My story's out. Everybody's going to hear it. And I dove under the covers and I hid under the covers for about 3 weeks until I finally convinced myself, you know what? It's okay. Because nobody who knows you is going to read the book. So the only people who are going to read the book are people that are perfect strangers, and I was okay with that. So I crawled out from under the covers, and I went to the dojo the next day, and on my sensei's desk was a copy of my book. Back under the covers. Because he's one of the main characters. I mean, he's the focus of the book. If it were not for him, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Exactly. He never gave up on pushing me, and I, never gave up on pushing back. But yeah, it's a crazy story.
Yeah, but sometimes, it's so funny because you were hiding under the covers. It's when we accept those fears and make peace with them, then it's like, okay, well, what are they going to do? If they don't want to know me anymore, that's fine. If they do want to know me, then that's fine too, and that's where I guess that, like, what a funny journey for you, Bart, that you finished it and then went, uh-oh.
Well, and here's the funny story, or the funny part is, like, I felt like, even before I saw the book on Sensei's desk, I felt like I had stripped myself naked and was walking down Main Street for everybody to see.
Yeah.
And after, it's like, well, they've seen me naked now. It's okay. How bad could it get?
It's like if anybody's listening, you can relate to this. But for me, after I gave birth, I didn't really care who saw my body anymore, because if anyone's been in the birthing process, especially having a natural birth, like pushing the baby out, the things that happen to your body, you don't care anymore. You're like, it's been through the ultimate change and everything. And then you're like, yeah, you can see my boobs if you want to, or you can see, it is what it is.
There are no secrets anymore.
Exactly.
And that's basically what it was. I was stripped naked, and what you see is what you get.
Exactly. I love that. And in saying that, once you got over your fear, it must have felt really like a weight has lifted, because you weren't carrying this stuff anymore. It's like, this is me. This is who I am. You like it or you don't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It took a while to get there. It really did. But what I think was the most powerful experience for me was when women would come into the dojo, and like I said, we don't have a lot of them, but I was in a position where I was already halfway up to black belt. Not that was my goal. It was not my goal. But I would always just take the women aside, work with them, one-on-one, kind of like being the mother hen, because I didn't want them, I was, triggered a lot of times in the dojo, and I didn't want anything to happen to them. But it was just kind of taking over a role that I never, ever wanted, never expected, and never thought I would be doing at this time in my life.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. And I like that then you were able to empower other women through living your journey and things, which is exactly, I feel that's why souls are here, to learn how to empower themselves so they can empower others. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as we finish our time together, Cheryl, I ask everyone that comes on, if they could heal or change just one thing in the world, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. So much. I would have to start with the one thing would be self-doubt. If we could stop that nagging little voice in our head that says you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not attractive enough, you're never going to do this, you're never going to do that, you're comparing yourself to other people, I think the world would be a much better place. I think we would be happier, healthier, there'd be a lot more love in the world, and I think that's my dream, and I never knew it was. So thank you for prying that out of me.
I'm so glad I did, and it's such a beautiful dream, and hopefully it's more than a dream, it becomes a vision and then comes to reality. So Beautiful. And if people want to find you, find your books, work with you, how can they find you, Cheryl?
Oh, you can find me pretty much anywhere. I do have my website is CherylIlov.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page, both for the podcast that I have, and yeah. If you can't find me, you're not looking.
I'll make sure I put it all in the show notes as well, so also people have no excuse to say they can't find you.
Yeah.
Well,
Although, yeah, as a ninja, we do like to hide, but when it comes to people trying to get a hold of me now, I'm pretty visible.
And that front, it's okay. It's okay. And thank you so much for your time, Cheryl. This has been an amazing conversation, and I'm really excited to see what you've still got left to do, because there's still much in you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure to be with you, Catherine. It's just wonderful speaking with you, and I know it's really early in the morning where you are.
It's okay. It's all right. I've got a child. I would be up anyway.
I did see her sneak around in the back.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.